Okay, appreciate everybody coming in on what is an early, it says Wednesday, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking it's Monday. Okay, we are going to hear from some of the public safety agencies. We're not going to do any kind of dog and pony show. We just got some specific questions or specific issues. I think most of y'all have been advised about the things that we've got that we want to hear from you about, and so, you know, unless some committee members have some questions that wander afield, or if you got some burning things you want to tell us about that don't show up in the 13 budget, we'll stick to the issues, and we're going to hear first from the Court of Appeals.
Good morning. I appreciate y'all letting us come and talk this morning. I think the specific issues that y'all want to talk to us about were e-filing. I think that's correct. We would prefer to call it electronic case management. What has happened over the last few years since this project actually got started in 2005, we have started kind of starts and fits. It's probably a bad time to get started on this new path with the budget, but nobody foresaw that coming. We do anticipate, though, that once the e-filing or the electronic case management is fully in place, it will save money. One of the things that has saved us at the Court of Appeals has been technology. We would not be able to keep up with our caseload without technology. So other than starts and fits, and we get a lump sum of money, we do a little bit of the project, then we get slowed down, some of the money gets taken back, which has been the nature of the budget for the last few years. We hope to be on track to convert over to our new docket system. We think it's ready in place within the next 30 days. However, we have 3 terms of court a year, sort of April, July, December. We will be ending a term of court March 30th, March 31st, and beginning a new term of court. We think that is probably the best time to do the conversion. I would like to mention that some of this project has been done in cooperation with the Supreme Court. Some of it has not. What they do and what we do is not necessarily the same. They sit in one panel with 7 judges at all times. We sit in 4 panels with 3 judges, so we actually have a lot more moving parts with our docket system. Their docket system did complete first. Our docket system has not been completed. What we tried to do was start our e-filing project on our old docket. It would not digest it. We went as far as we could go, and then we got to the point where we were going to have a complete new docket, which we anticipate being finished sometime in the next 30 days.
I guess the question is that last year, I don't think y'all had any money in there for e-filing or technology, and because the Supreme Court had requested some, it seemed to make sense that since y'all were using the same consultant, that we might get better bang for the buck if we did both projects at the same time, and got some prices. And I guess we were under the impression that that was going to complete the project, and now we see that we need more money to complete the project. So tell me where we missed the boat last year. Well, you bail quick, don't you?
I'm the clerk of the court. I don't know if you've met me before, but I'm Holly Sparrow. And
Pull that mic over there close to you, please.
Okay, I'm sorry, sir. Last year, I guess you'd say we have from the very first given the legislature in our budget request for the last few years something about our electronic case management project. And there have always been several phases to it, and I want to kind of explain those and explain what the money you gave us last year is for, so that you'll understand why we're asking for more. The first phase was the e-filing, and that is only one phase of it really, and what it involved is basically getting the electronic electronic documents from the attorneys into the court processing them, and then getting electronic orders out. That has been done. That was phase one. That was not, it was actually funded through our own operations budget. We saved, we scrimped in order to put money toward that, which we did in phase one, and we completed. That is done. We are on phase two and phase three. They're being done together. And those two phases affect the docket rewrite and the ability to handle electronic applications, the application itself through our central staff. And they're being done together with the same funding. We originally got an appropriation from the legislature to do that. That was taken back when the cuts occurred in FY 2009. We then scrimped and saved over 2 budget years and used, again, operational money. We cut out, we spent money on, we used our contractor money to kind of focus it in on this project, not on anything else. We had cuts in every operation. We saved money wherever we could to get these funded. So we funded it in 2 parts, $89,000 and then $62,000. That docket rewrite is 95% complete. We are ticking down. We are at the process now of, this is not, here's the whole docket product, what doesn't work in it. We have a list. The contractor is going through the list and saying, okay, we fix this, fix this. Again, at that point, we expect over the next couple of weeks all those things will be corrected so that we can begin using it. And as Judge Ellington said, we will delay until the next term because we don't want to be in what we call distress, where cases have to go out and starting a new product. Because that's going to make everybody very concerned about, can we get the things out that we need to on a timely basis. So we'll be starting mid-April. Phase, what we call phase 4, is what you funded. And the budget, this current budget, is for electronic trial court records. And as you explained, it is a joint project with the Supreme Court. They received some funding. They actually asked for the funding, and you kindly granted us some funding so that we could do this project together. It is a process in which a clerk of the trial court can take it and be able to submit to us electronically that trial court record. The intention to start is to do it on a sort of case-by-case basis. The trial court clerk would enter a certain amount of data and upload an individual record to us. And then if they had to do a second appeal, they'd have to do it one by one. The money that we're asking for, $66,000 for that project for the next budget year, is to allow us to create an automated version of that one by one, so that instead the trial court clerk could go in and punch a button and it would automatically send it to us. And counties that have a significant number of appeals are going to want that process. They're not going to want to have a deputy clerk sit there, type in stuff, send one, type in stuff, send one. This would allow them then to do it like overnight. They push the button and it starts loading this stuff to us overnight, and all of it comes through if they have multiple appeals. Somebody like Fulton County State Court is going to want that kind of process. So anyway, that's what the $66,000 is for. Now we have also asked for 2 other items. One is $12,000. The $12,000 is going to be maintenance on the equipment that we purchased for this electronic trial court project. Because once it comes up, we're going to have to start paying maintenance on the project. So that's the $12,000. We are also asking for $33,000 because when our new docket comes up, and that was not in the original budget submitted to you because we didn't know when the new docket would become active. Once it comes up, we're going to have to pay $33,000 a year to have maintenance on the software and hardware for that new docket. So those are the items that we're asking for you. And I want to explain to you that we keep talking about this as e-filing, but it's really electronic case management, because this is the process, like Judge Ellington said, in which we are trying to get more efficiency through automation. And I want to show you an example of why we want the new docket done. These 3 the judge's office, and if it's for an author, you pull a pill. If it's that judge, he can't do it, so he has to pull another pill. So we get a judge. This is a sort of random process, but as you can see, two pills. That's what we do. It takes two clerks walking from the building they're in over to the judge's office, sitting in the judge's office, doing this, because otherwise somebody may think we're not doing it by, quote, a random or impartial process. When our docket comes up, it will do it automatically. And we're no longer having it saves time for 3 people. It gets across this, it's closer to true random. So this is just an example, a little example of something that can be achieved by electronics. And we have many more things like that. This system will produce standard orders. Our current system does not produce standard orders. So we are getting more in case management than just electronic filing. And I think even when we finish this phase, you'll see on the last page, there's a future phase. We will come back to you and ask for some more enhancements over the years. We don't have any time frame for this right now or cost on the last page. The electronic voting and electronic circulation of documents between judges' chambers. That would improve our processes again, but we're not asking for that now. We want to swallow what we have, finish what we have, and then move on to that. But that will improve our processes. And that helps us from having to have more people and having a more efficient process to get things out quickly, also providing more access for the public to all of these things we're trying to do over time. We're not trying to get a whole bunch of money and not finish it. We're trying to do it over time, piecemeal by piecemeal, and we make the court more efficient in order to swallow up more filings as they come and to keep from having to add more people and more people. So I just want to say that. I also wanted to mention that we looked at just casually at another system. There's very few systems out there for the appellate court, but there is one system called LTO. It is $2 million to just buy the system, and then you still have to pay additional money to have it modified for your system. So we think you're getting a great bargain with what you're investing in us, and we hope you will consider our request.
Representative Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I certainly understand the importance of going with the electronic, and I think we all understand that. I do have a couple questions. In 2009, we funded $147,900 to replace the court's docket system, and I'm hearing you say that we're 30 days or so away from having that completed.
We are, but I also will tell you that you took back the we gave that back in FY 2009, so that money was never really given to us. It was sent back to you during the cut.
Okay.
So the only money that the legislature has specifically appropriated to us for this whole project that we've been working on is $102,500. And that is for electronic case management. So we have managed on our own to do electronic filing, and we now have, I think we decided, let's see, I think in our little handout you will find the numbers about, we received in 2011 5,039 electronic filings, and we achieved that on our own. That is about 513 e-filings processed per month. About 60% of our briefs and motions are being received by e-filing right now and being processed. In other words, we send out an electronic order. We funded that ourselves. Then the docket rewrite, we have funded ourselves. When we have it up in 30 days, it will be because we managed to save and scrimp from our operational budget in order to do this, even after you cut that money. So, I mean, it's taken longer because of that. The product may not be quite as good as we wanted, and that may be why we were going to We would have wanted to have electronic voting. We would have wanted to have electronic circulation, but we didn't have, we couldn't get that money. So
Okay.
I just wanted to make it clear.
Also in '09, there was $45,000 for the e-file initiative.
Right, and that came
And-
back to you too by way of our general cuts. It was in all of our general cuts when we didn't make our percentage cuts.
Okay, so we didn't take that back, but you offered it up when you did
Yes, sir.
cuts that everybody else did.
Right.
It's still in your base.
No. No. What, correct, Dan?
There was $46,000 given back, is that not in the 2010 budget? I just tracked last night to be sure. And they were part of the general line item that just said general operations and personnel cuts, and they would send that figure. So we did reduce, and it was not in the 2010 budget. We actually cut more than that. It was $46,250.
Thank you.
Now, not part of the e-filing, but part of your budget request is $71,000 for to replace 6-year-old computers.
That's for the equipment in the,
Pull the mic over.
that's for the equipment in the judge's offices. Of course, like everybody else, we hadn't had any money spent on equipment for the last, 10 years, on a lot of it. And so printers, computers, upgrades, all of those things that we have put off, we're gonna need to have those. We think that, again, the technology is the only thing that saves us because of cuts like personnel. I think I've told y'all many times, and this is my 13th year at the court now, we have 10 fewer people than when I started 13 years ago. So, we're trying to do more with less, but the technology and equipment has helped us do that.
Did y'all buy some laptops last year?
I don't think so. I think across the service, I don't think staff pay is 75% of our computers are over 5 years old.
Representative Baker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Would you not have to have the computers to start the new program? I don't see how that could.
I guess we actually have older computers, and we're talking about mainly laptops, desktops, that we're replacing with the 71,000. They would be better, they would be faster, they would have more memory, but they are not directly related to, like I believe the chairman said, to the e-filing project. We will continue with the project as best we can without those, but they are aging, so we're going to have replacements if something breaks or lost.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank y'all.
Thanks so much.
You didn't even have to bring the tray with all of the books on it.
Well, we brought them to that instead.
Stay away from the building license.
Judicial Qualifications Commission. That is next.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Is this on?
There we go. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm really here today to answer questions, but I'll just briefly tell you what we've been doing since last year with the Judicial Qualifications Commission. Thank you for your funding from last year. You got us off of life support, and you sustained us through another year. We've been very active. We've been very, very frugal with the money you've given us. Our caseload continues to, unfortunately, increase. Over the last few years, our caseload has gone from about 300. This year, we're expecting about 675 complaints against judges. We have about 1,800 judges in Georgia that we regulate. Of those, we'll probably have about 100, 75 to 100 that actually go before the commission. Right now, in terms of active caseload, we have about 6 or 8 judges that are currently under investigation, very serious charges. And frankly, we're having to triage. We're having to take, one or two at a time because we don't have the staff to be able to fully investigate judges. It's me, our commission, and our investigator, Richard Hyde. I was wondering if Holly would actually leave those after they dispense with their little model of finding out what judge is going to get assigned a case, if they would give that to us, and maybe we could decide which judge we're going to take next.
No, I think when they get the electronic system in, then they're going to use that for dice games.
For dice games or something. Well, I thought we could use it at the JQC, actually, in determining which judge that we actually investigate next, because that's really, Mr. Chairman, the point that's gotten to at the JQC. We do a very good job of investigating judges. We're very thorough in our prosecutions and investigations, but because of the number that we have, we can only do a several at a time.
Let me ask you a question. How many of those, say, 600 cases that you have deal with assistant magistrate court judges?
We probably, I would guess, 15% maybe.
And
I don't have a statistic for that, but that's probably about right. Maybe 15% are appointed magistrates. And we're still dealing with the issue of appointed magistrates. In fact, my investigator just this last month was in 2 different circuits dealing with 2 appointed magistrates in a particular county, where the chief magistrate and the appointed magistrate are having issues, personnel problems that unfortunately elevate themselves to disciplinary problems if they're not resolved. So I would say about 15% maybe of the cases we have, and that's, I can get you that statistic, Mr. Chairman, but that's a estimate.
there was some legislation that was introduced last year to allow chief judges, with the advice of somebody, Superior Court judges, to remove assistant magistrate court judges if that legislation were adopted. And I also understand that there might be some rule changes proposed by the court system to allow for the removal of these judges. Would that reduce some of your caseload?
I think it would. I think a lot of the complaints we're getting right now in reference to associate magistrate really are just personnel issues that, left unresolved, become disciplinary issues, because what you have is a situation where a chief judge is asking an associate magistrate to do something, and they're either refusing to do it or engaging in some sort of insubordination. We get called in, and frankly, we try to mediate these disputes. This past week, Richard Hyde was up in a jurisdiction trying to mediate a dispute between a chief magistrate and an associate magistrate, spending a lot of resources and a lot of time doing that. We were able to resolve one case recently, but that one's still unresolved, the one we just dealt with a couple weeks ago. So I'm here neither to support or oppose that legislation, which is House Bill 149, but I will say in direct answer to your question, if that particular legislation were passed by the General Assembly, I believe it would reduce our caseload.
Okay. Questions? We cut your request in the 12 amended.
Right.
And if we annualize that cut, it would make your request for $106,000 $75,000. If we did that, could you hire somebody?
I could.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we asked for that money with the idea that we would be hiring somebody in January, but being good stewards of the resources and the limited resources we have, we did not want to commit to hire anybody until we actually had that money appropriated. We understand that money, if it is appropriated, probably won't hit our budget till April or May. So you could take that figure, that $53,000 figure, and annualize it as of May 1st and probably come up with a figure closer to about $35,000 to get us through July 1st. I could hire somebody in May, but I'm not committed to hire anybody until I have the appropriation.
Well, I understand, but what your original request was for $53,000.
That is correct.
In the 12 amended.
In the 12 amended,
Right.
that was for 50.
And
that was a salary of $75,000 with benefits, which would be $106,000.
All right. My question is that you know, and I don't know what the Senate will do, but you know what we did was we cut that 53 to 35,000 for the amended.
For amended.
And we're now dealing with the 13 budget, which is a full fiscal year. If we annualized that 35, it would annualize out to a total appropriation of $75,000 in the 13.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
And my question is if we annualize that at 75, can you hire somebody for that, or are we just basically not doing anything unless we appropriate the 106 that you're requesting?
I'm looking to hire a lawyer who has some experience, probably a former prosecutor, somebody with about 8 to 10 years experience. I think we would need to pay somebody an equivalent salary of someone coming out of an experienced DA's office, probably somewhere around $75,000, with the benefits would be about 106. So that, directly answering your question, I could hire somebody for that amount of money that you have annualized, but I would probably have to hire someone less experienced, probably someone around $50,000, maybe someone right out of law school.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
GBI. Sir. I'm sorry. Mr. Weldon Representative Weldon has a question for Jeff Davis. I'm sorry. I didn't see your light blinking, Tom.
I think our greatest needs at the JQC is for someone to help review complaints, because the complaints are just exponentially increasing. That requires a lawyer to review that, to make a jurisdictional analysis of whether that particular complaint falls within our jurisdiction. I'm the only lawyer in the office, so I review every one of them. And I also make a point of writing a letter to every single complainant personally if I dismiss their complaint, to explain to them why we can't review a ruling of a judge, for instance. So a paralegal would be helpful in helping us process, but I don't think, Representative Weldon, that it would actually help the process where we need the most help, which is getting the complaints processed and reviewed. And then the other area of need that we have is investigative. I do a lot of investigative work as well. Richard Hyde is our only investigator, as you know, and he covers an entire state. I handle a lot of investigation that can be handled over the phone, interviewing witnesses, interviewing lawyers, litigants, and that sort of thing. If it requires boots on the ground, Richard goes out and does that. I think a paralegal that had investigative training could probably help in some of our investigation. But really, I believe we need another licensed attorney to help us. Given the current job market with attorneys coming out, I think there are a lot of attorneys right now coming out of law school who don't have jobs, who are working for diminished salaries. I think if we were going to hire a lawyer right out of law school right now, I think we could get somebody for a reduced amount of money. But again, you're dealing with an experience issue. The things that we deal with are very critical and very important, and they really require someone who has an understanding of litigation, because you're reviewing a case from the perspective of, did this judge do anything unethical? And it helps to have actually tried a case. It helps to have been in the courtroom. It helps to have had some client relations as a lawyer to be able to make those kinds of judgments. So I really think the kind of help that we need would be someone who had more experience, who can actually practice law for an extended period of time.
Well, I certainly agree with you. You don't need to have a brand new lawyer.
Right.
Reviewing a JQC complaint. And you just feel like it would help you move your mission forward that you have to do. I think I probably agree
Right.
with you. If you're the only lawyer in the office, I don't see how you could review all those.
I think for a little bit more money, I think we could pay a new lawyer $50, and we could probably get an experienced prosecutor for about $75. And I think for a little bit more money, we could get a lot more bang for our buck out of an experienced lawyer.
Well, yeah, and let me just comment on that. I don't think you need a new lawyer in your office.
Right.
Doing any of that stuff.
I agree.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davis.
All right, thank you.
Director Keenan. Thank you for coming today, and we certainly are proud of our Georgia Bureau of Investigation and the work that you do there.
Oh, thank you, sir.
If you would share with us your thoughts and concerns, we will certainly have some questions for you, but
Yes, sir.
if you begin.
I was asked to address two issues. One is the salaries of agents and scientists, and the second was the bond package. Governor Deal's budget addressed what was the most critical immediate issue facing us, which was 27 scientist positions which would be lapsed when federal grants went away. And that was done, his budget called for moving some money around from one division to another to cover those scientist positions. So we're not going to have 27 scientists will be out of a job. But the most critical issue now facing the Georgia Bureau of Investigation is the lack of salaries for agents and scientists, and specifically the pay disparity between GBI agents, scientists, and Georgia State Patrol. We have different, although we're in state level law enforcement, we have different missions. And the reason why I say this is a critical issue for us, well, on an average, our turnover rate in the scientist ranks is 10% a year. The agent ranks is 10 to 12% a year. We are spending millions of dollars training capable men and women to be GBI agents and be scientists, and then they're leaving state employment after they get between 5 and 10 years experience. I'll give you an example of how this impacts the state of Georgia. With a 10% scientist turnover, this month we will see a decrease in the crime lab backlog of almost 1,000 cases. And the reason why there's a decrease is that we went through a hiring cycle of scientists. We have trained them, which takes between 12 and 18 months to get a scientist trained in their discipline, and then they go to work. And when they hit the bench and get behind the microscope, they're turning out cases, and then in the case log, the backlog will drop. We'll have scientists that will leave us. They'll go to. We're unfortunate in that the Department of Defense Crime Laboratory is based here in Atlanta. They pay significantly higher salaries than the state does, and they do significantly less work per scientist. So our scientists are once they're trained, they're a sought-after commodity, and they can go to other jobs in the private sector, but generally in other agencies, and make substantially more money and work less. GBI agents are the best trained criminal investigators in the United States, and I've told the governor I can back this up. They work very, very hard. In the last 10 years, we have lost 85 scientist positions. We've balanced our budget. We've undertaken most of our budget cuts in the GBI by not filling agent positions, giving up those positions. Now we've been able to do that and not terminate agents' employment because our turnover rate is such that they leave us and go to other jobs, and then we were able to give up that funding in their positions. Now we've lost 28 agents since 2008. 28 agents with over 10 years experience have left us to go to other law enforcement, most of those to federal agencies. But we're losing agents going to local agencies, going to be traffic cops, because they make more money working traffic than they will as a criminal investigator for the state of Georgia. We have the best trained criminal investigators in the country. They do complex work, but they're getting very tired. They're wore out. On an average weekend, agents are going out on 4 to 5 murders or death investigations. They get called out when there's major drug interdictions. They're on call 24/7, and they work very hard. So, and as I have spoken to many people, I explained that the GBI, as we know it today, is not going to continue to exist if we don't stop the hemorrhage of scientists and agents leaving us to go to other employment. So that is the now we've done in the previous administration. They sent SPA over to check all of our data. When I talked about the turnover rate and the salary disparity, and I told the governor, I said, bring them on, bring over everybody. We can back up everything we're saying. SPA came on, we loaded them down with data, and they went back. So I can back up everything I'm saying. Now, we did a study as to what is the pay disparity between the GBI agents and scientists versus state patrol in the comparable ranks. Did it person to person. And for that disparity to be corrected is $7.3 million. That's how underpaid they are. Most of that money is in the upper level, working level of agent ranks, the agent 2, agent 3 positions, and then the lower level supervisors. There's a major pay disparity. The issues are two things. One is economic, but the second thing is also morale, because we got state officers with a large pay disparity. Both of them do exceedingly difficult work with their different jobs. And I like to close out by talking about the salary by pointing out that Georgia is number 5 in the nation in the number of police officers killed in the line of duty. It is extremely dangerous out there on the streets for local law enforcement, state law enforcement, troopers, rangers, GBI. Very, very dangerous. We are working a police officer's involved shooting a week on an average in the state of Georgia. GBI does most of this work. So I have a great understanding of the level of danger that is out there for all Georgia law enforcement. It is not going to improve. It is going to get worse. I'll be glad to answer any questions related to salaries.
Representative Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, did I just hear you say 7.3 million would achieve parity?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's just for your agents, or is that also working on scientists?
That is agents and scientists.
Okay.
I thought the earlier information we had was 9 million.
Yes, sir, it was. That was a plan put together. That was a plan put together by agents, which would give parity with other states and some of the lower-ranking federal agencies. But the critical issue is the 7.3, which would give us parity with the Georgia State Patrol.
Yeah.
I'll take the 9 million, but I'm just.
Yeah, I bet. Representative Weldon. Baker.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Director, thank you for being here with us today.
Yes, sir.
And again, we echo the fine job that you guys do. Nationwide, where do you stand as far as salary is concerned?
Yeah, the last salary study we did completed, which was last month in the southern states, we're at the very bottom.
Knowing that your agents are underpaid and that you're losing them, but also understanding the financial situation that the state continues to be in, if we put in a plan that would achieve parity over a period of time so that they could see the light at the end of the tunnel and they got something every year so that they could see that they were getting there, do you think that would help?
That will help. It will not solve the problem. It will slow down a few of the agents who would leave, because, and I say this because we do exit interviews with every person who leaves the GBI. I know what the issues are. They do not want to leave the GBI. Scientists don't, agents won't. We are a great agency. It doesn't have anything to do with Vernon Keenan. It's just a great agency, and but they got to make decisions in the interest of their family. I think light at the end of the tunnel, yes, that will help. I would also like to see us bite the apple and solve the problem so that the GBI can stay concentrated on the major issues we deal with every day.
Okay. Representative Neal.
You talked a little bit about the cost of training and so forth. Did you share with us a number on how much it cost us per agent to provide that training and get that agent up to the level they need to be?
it takes approximately $70,000 to train an agent from the time they come into the door to where we're prepared to turn them loose on working a criminal case. And I can provide you the breakdown on all those figures. We have calculated this out, and the state will save money. But the salary increase, slowing down the turnover rate, will save money and through the training costs we're expending.
What are your training expenditures per year?
That we do across in the agency.
For new hires.
Oh, for new hires, $70,000 is what we calculate
Per
training per
okay.
agent.
Okay, how much does that basically end up? You're talking about for 5 agents, 10 agents, 20 agents. What's anticipated?
Be per agent.
Now, his question is like this year, how many agents are you going to train?
Well, we hired 24 agents in October, and half of them were post-certified, so the other part they're going through they've completed post-certification. So do you know the training costs we spent?
So $1.5 million to train new agents this year?
Yeah, whatever 70,000 towards 24 would be.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Representative Powell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Vernon, we've been around so long, you and I have been to this dance before, hadn't we?
Yes, sir. I'm an example. If you stay with the GBI for 39 years, you become the director because you outlasted everyone else in the agency.
Exactly right. Sometimes that's the way it is with being a legislator, too. I want to just make a comment. I just feel compelled to make this comment from having, years of being on this committee and seeing the budget. The law enforcement community is a uniformed agency. While you may have GBI, you have the State Patrol, you have DNR Rangers, you have all of them. But at the end of the day, they're all working together for a final goal, and that's to investigate, to promote the laws of this state, and to do the investigations. This committee, we only deal with those of y'all that are here, the GBI, and we know, and I think most of everybody here knows the dilemma that we're in. A few years ago, we boosted up the State Patrol, got them moved up a little bit. And we have a problem here because, one, we don't deal with the DNR. We don't have their part of the Ranger budget, which I think we should have. But it's all about who squeals the loudest at any particular time. And to me, it's a sad state of affairs that when, say, the GBI or when the State Patrol, when they needed something, then we found it somewhere to bring their salaries up. Well, then the GBI didn't get anything that particular year to promote parity, much less the DNR. And I think that it would probably be the members of this committee that, and we know that it's going to have to go up the food chain from us to decide what's going to be done. It's not solely this committee, it's up the food chain to find that money for parity in the system to do it. But I think that we need to emphasize to the leadership above us, and possibly as well as those who create the budget even further, that we need to take all of these law enforcement agencies, and they need to be looked at to create parity across the level on all of them. And then whenever something is done on one year, it needs to be done to all of them, a classification system across the ranks, because this hasn't done anything good for morale. And the state, whether it's GBI, State Patrol, DNR, or whatever agency that has law enforcement that's post-certified, we're in competition with the federal government. They're a bottomless pit of what they can, and we can't compete with them. Well, so the best that we can do, and this committee needs to do, and that's to throw the ideas out to the leadership upstream, that we need to set up a system so that all of these law enforcement agencies are looked at to create parity in the system.
Was that a question? Representative Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate what Mr. Powell had to say. I agree. We definitely need to look to see what will make us competitive in any environment we compete in. We obviously would like to have and enjoy having the
Tom, pull Glenn's microphone over.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate Mr. Powell's comment, and I agree that we need some parity. But also, I guess I would, add to that you know, if we have people out there putting people, dangerous criminals, in jail, that to me that's a priority that would be, it's compelling to me. And I want to go back to, you said that this year we lost 24, or we added 24 agents.
Added 24.
Okay, now how many did we lose this year?
I'll have to get that to you.
But
It's ongoing. Like we
I think somebody behind you is trying to give you that information, Director.
10.
10, but we have I know by looking at your budget the last few years that you've had attrition, that you've not filled slots.
That's how we did our budget cuts.
Yes, sir. And so just looking at it on a per year basis, if you hired 24 a year, and that's if you filled the spots that you have available in addition to dealing with your present attrition, looks like $1,680,000 that you're going to spend in training if you filled all those people or all those positions with new people. And I'm not saying you always have to do that, but I think that's the number we have.
Yes, sir.
And how far are you down from your employee levels, I guess, prior to 2009?
Well, the 24 agents that we just hired, the first we'd hired in 5 years. I mean, we have not hired any.
So you're about halfway through the 5 years that you need to fill those.
Yes, sir. We're 85 agents down from what we were 10 years ago. And I'm not this. You know, I want a small. I can accept the smaller workforce.
Mm-hmm.
They got to be adequately paid.
And they have to be qualified.
Yes, sir. Oh,
And you got to be trained.
Yes, sir. We have the same qualification as an FBI agent, identical. Anyone that comes to work for the GBI, the FBI, and hire just like that. Same, because it takes those qualifications to do the work that the GBI requires out of our agents.
And I appreciate that standard of professionalism that you require of your agents. I appreciate it. And that's, you know, that's one of the things I think is missed a lot of times. And I think that's what it should be. I appreciate that. Thank you for raising the standard to that. And I would argue that some of these states that I have listed in the Southeast, they don't have those standards. And I've worked with GBI agents personally, and I've worked against them, and I know they make a good case. But if we take that 1.68 million, multiply that times 5 years, we're going to spend $8,400,000 over that time period just in training alone. That doesn't count anything else.
Right.
That doesn't count gas or insurance and issues like that. And accordingly, you know, that's pretty. I mean, that's just money going out the door we won't ever get any benefit from.
We're the training ground and scientists and agents for federal agencies and now local agencies. We're losing agents going to the work to local PDs.
Okay.
Okay, Representative Green.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director, help me with my memory. I've been on this committee a long time, and
yes, sir.
Was it 2008 that we actually gave you something, then took it away in regard to?
Yes, sir. We got a pay raise. We got the pay raise, and before it was implemented, all the pay raises in state government were pulled back.
Okay, so and what? And of course, that was a morale crasher right there in that respect, there. But I want you to know that every one of my sheriffs in my counties, 6 counties, called on behalf of the GBI to support them on this issue, because that's an extension of. They're just like the deputies down there. They go and work well with our sheriffs, and I want to commend them for doing this. We've got a great group in Southwest Georgia, strong individuals that have been a tremendous asset to our law enforcement agencies down there. But every one of my sheriffs called to support a pay raise for these individuals. And I want you to carry that back
Yes,
to
sir.
them.
I will let the agents know. They're hardworking and they
They
appreciate
are.
the friends. We stress these partnerships with local law enforcement. We all work together.
Well, I appreciate
proud of
too
that. Thank you.
your group. When I have international visitors, they have been absolutely great, because I'm always proud to show them off to our international visitors too. And thank you for always helping me there.
Yes, sir.
Couple of other little minor issues, Director.
Yes, sir.
I understand that when there was money transferred to keep these science positions, that there might not have been enough money put into the budget. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. It calls for the investigative division to lose 9 agents, which the calculations are that, that was 4 agent positions, 4 scientist positions that won't be filled.
Well, but my understanding is that there was $900,000 something transferred from one fund to another, and then an additional $300,000 was put in, and it made a total appropriation of $1.2 million. And if we fund it at 1.2, we're going to lose some science positions. Is that right?
Yes.
We will lose 4.
Lose four scientists.
So if we don't lose them, we need 1.4. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. So we need another 200,000, or we're going to lose some more scientist positions.
Yes, sir.
After you've trained them.
Yes, sir. Because all of this is calculated on the turnover rate is going to free up positions. If we didn't have the turnover rate, then it'd be.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then the next question, you said something when you came in that you were talking about the bond package.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
Well, we were asked to briefly touch on what our bond package was this year, and it was one is for $800,000 to finish off the communications equipment needed to meet the FCC new guidelines for radio equipment.
All right, this is already in the governor's
Yes,
package.
already in the governor. There's
Anybody got
no
any
issues.
Anybody got any issues with the governor's bond package? Seeing none, you don't need to talk about it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Anything else from the GBI? Any other questions from any members of the committee? Representative Burns.
Quickly, Mr. Chairman, did we touch on if there's a backlog in the crime labs?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, I'll get that answer later because I came in late. I'm sorry.
I just briefly touched on it. Our backlog is averaging between 5,000 and 6,000 cases. And as I was pointing out, we had a 1,000 case drop in December because the scientists that we hired a year ago have completed their training and now they're working. So that we have a dramatic drop. We will have scientists that will leave us in the next few months. And when they leave, we'll immediately fill their positions, but they'll have to go through training. So then the backlog's going to go right back up. We will never get ahead of the backlog till we stop the turnover rate.
Thank you.
Representative Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One other question.
Yes,
we have in Northwest Georgia, the Chattooga County office,
yes,
and at crime labs, I think has been closed.
Yes, sir.
Can you just comment on the Northwest Georgia cases and how they're being processed, and how you've had to deal with that, the loss of that facility and those scientists?
Yes, sir. That was a budget cut that we had to take, and we shut down the facility. It's sitting vacant up there, growing mold. I don't see in time in the foreseeable future of getting a staffing level up that would justify opening the laboratory back up. Now, the local agencies are still being serviced, but they have to bring their evidence down to the GBI or have it or ship it down to us.
And that, how are they getting it down there to? They're either shipping it by FedEx or another service provider, or driving it down themselves?
Yes, sir.
What would it take to reopen that facility and staff it properly?
George?
It would take, I'm Dr. George Heron, I'm the director of the lab. It would take a minimum of 5 scientists, which would be an average salary of about and benefits of about $75,000 to $80,000 per scientist. A manager, which with salary and benefits would be somewhere between $90,000 and $100,000. 3 technicians, which are salary and benefits are close to $50,000. So you're looking at about, I guess, about $500,000 for salary alone for those positions, and then we would have to re-equip the laboratory, which would cost about $1 million to re-equip the laboratory, and then about $400,000 a year for just general operating expenses.
If you could choose between salary parity and opening that lab, which one would you choose?
Salaries. Salaries. Otherwise, we would have a new laboratory with a turnover rate.
I knew the answer to that question. We're not going to chase that rabbit today. Any other questions for the director? Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Juvenile courts. Eric Johns.
Good morning, Chairman, committee members. Thank you for having us here today. I'm Kirsten Wallace. I'm with the Council of Juvenile Court Judges. With me today I have Eric John, our Executive Director, our President, Judge Deborah Edwards. She's the Juvenile Judge for Houston County, and our Legislative Chair, Juvenile Judge Velma Tilley, the Juvenile Judge for Bartow County. For 2013, we have 2 requests that were actually not in the original budget submission. The first one is the state health benefit plan, the increase statewide. The shortage that we will have is $27,850. The second one is the employee retirement system. That increase is $28,036. Those were not in the original budget request, so we are asking for those funds.
So you're going to check into that?
Mr. Chairman, we're going to...
We'll check into that. The issue that we wanted to talk about is the same one we talked about last year.
Yes.
And that's the permanent homes for children.
Yes.
So let's address that.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, which direction would you like for us to go in? Do you want us to talk about justify the program?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to turn it over to our Executive Director, Eric John, so he can kind of give you some information on the program and when it was established.
If you don't mind, I'll just let Judge Edwards, who's a long-time
That's fine.
judge and former SAG, who's very familiar with the program. Judge Tilley was a former SAG. She's also very familiar.
Okay.
A long-time judge.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The Citizens Panel Review, or as it was called, the Permanent Homes for Children, is a program where volunteers review each case of the children who are in foster care every 6 months. And that's law that they do that it has to be reviewed. If they didn't review it, the judges would have to review it. And we're pretty much all in agreement that we would never go home if we had to review each kid in foster care every 6 months ourselves. It's set up in response to federal guidelines. So the 4E money that comes for the foster children is tied to our doing all that correctly. I believe Judge Tilley and I could give you a lot of feel-good stories about why we like having the panel and the citizens in the community involved in this. The way it assists in getting case plans understood and worked out. They meet with the foster parents and the parents of the children and the children many times every 6 months and talk about all this to see what they can do to facilitate the children going home or being put in a permanent place. And right now there's staff at the state level that train volunteers that, what do they call it, field staff that run the program. Like in Houston County, the field staff for our district comes to our panel reviews. They're usually like twice a month for 2 days and make sure that it's done right. There's been a question about why the counties couldn't just do that. Well, the counties don't have any money, for one thing, and for another thing, if they don't do it right, there's no penalty to the counties. The penalty would be to the federal money coming to the state if it were done incorrectly. Judge Tilley?
Do you want to hear why the panels are good, period? Is that one of the issues you'd like to have addressed?
Well, I think probably there are two issues. Number one, what purpose do the panels serve? And as they are volunteers, community people, what is the state budget as far as what's being expended for juvenile courts for these citizen review panels? What are we spending our money on, and why is it necessary?
I'd like to address the first, how valuable they are first. Because last year when we were going to address this, I sent a message to our DFACS director to ask her if she thought they were valuable and why. And she sent back a list of why they were important to her as a DFACS director. And they included that parents and case managers feel more comfortable in that setting, that more time is allowed for each case than in a court hearing, that they are more family focused, that children feel more comfortable talking in that setting, that it allows the community to be part of the solution and to gain an understanding of the issues facing the community, that it allows for more views or answers, it's more solution focused, that often foster parents become mentors, and that's developed in that process, and it gives responsibility to the community for assisting families, which I thought was a great one, and it allowed for more frequent reviews. That was the DFACS perspective. From a court perspective, I see that having citizens know what we are doing and the challenges that we face as that's invaluable, and that is kind of the accountability part of our court system. I highly value the fact that we have citizens kind of overseeing what we're doing. Again, on the practical side, as Judge Edwards has said, the caseloads are so high that we could not do that. We'd have to add judges. Literally, you'd have to add judges across the state if we had to do judicial reviews of all these cases. And part of the thing is that would happen is it would then become a highly adversarial situation all the way through. What happens in Bartow County frequently is by the time we get to terminations of parental rights, we get about 75% become consents. And the reason that happens, I would suggest, is that because as the families sit around the table, and if the mom and the dad are not going to be able, don't do what they're supposed to do, what they end up seeing is this loving foster parent across the table from them taking care of their child, the child sitting in that parent's lap. And they are able to see and able to ultimately hand that child over to that person who's been taking care of them for a year or more. And that is a huge benefit. I ended up trying a case at the end of last year that got transferred to me from another county, so it was not part of our system. We tried that case for 7 days. That was an absolute budget buster at the end of last year. And as I say, it came from another county, so it wasn't a Bartow County case to begin with, but it was a 28-year-old mom. This was her 9th child. And we tried it for 7 days. Now, I don't say that if that had been in our panel system, that would have ended any differently because that mom had real problems. But, you know, we don't have those kind of litigated cases in my county because they end up being resolved. The other side that we have is as parents develop, as they're sitting in panel, that foster parents end up being mentors for parents. And so if children end up returning home, they have that ongoing relationship with the parent, which is only beneficial to the child. And so, as they go forward, they maintain that relationship. And if things happen down the road that don't work out, then that foster parent ends up being the safety net for that family. And so there's that huge benefit. Now, so, we ultimately have these, those are the kind of benefits we have. And in Bartow, we work on, there are strict statutory time limits that we all work on throughout the state. And we abide by them in Bartow, and I know that Judge Edward does in Houston County as well. And so we do time certain scheduling in Bartow, which respects professionals, time restraints, officers that come to court, case managers, lawyers, so that nobody's waiting around all day long. And so if we ended up having to have this flood of cases coming back that aren't reviewed by panels, then we're gonna lose a lot of that. We have, so back to why that should be done at the state level. a year and a half ago when we were, so last year when we were talking about this, I got the statistics for the year before on what federal dollars were being drawn down for the Department of Family and Children's Services, and it was $77 million. That's the funding that's in jeopardy over, if we don't do this right. If cases are not reviewed correctly, that's the amount of money that's in jeopardy over this minuscule amount of money that we're allocating from the state to have these field staff. And the reason we need this kind of state oversight is because that we need to have to make sure that these are all done correctly. Now in Bartow County, I have a county paid employee that manages my panels, but all counties don't have that, and I think it's about half that don't. So the field staff are actually running the panels in half the counties. Now, if in my county my employee leaves, I'm going to have the field staff come in and take over that role while I hire another person, or when she's out on vacation or when she's gone, I need that person occasionally. But many counties don't have that, and so they fill in that gap. But she's never going to be able to come to my county if we don't have. Last year the issue was whether we were going to cut some. If they cut it across the state, then I'll never have her in my county. The other thing is, local people are not, even if you have a training manual, it's one thing to get a training manual and say, okay, here it is, good luck to you, go for it. But to expect training local folks to really even comprehend or care about and maintain their ability to care about what the federal government requires to maintain $77 million in funding, that's kind of hoping for the best. And it's the state that's going to lose it, not the counties. And so that would be my thought on that. Is that about it?
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank y'all very much.
Thank you for having us.
Should get it. Public safety. I think we want to talk about gas, don't we?
Mr. Chairman, I promise you whenever I'd see you, I'd start off with the issue, and it'll be fuel at the beginning of this conversation, and it'll be fuel at the end.
What's in the middle?
Fuel.
Okay.
A few other questions that you did ask us to address. Aviation came back to us last year because of House Bill 414. We got 10 months of the budget, and that is properly reflected. Personal service has always come from us because our personnel were detached. That has come back to us, and it's accurately reflected. The bill called for 6 positions, mechanics positions, to be funded. We have 4, and it's accurately reflected that the 2 other positions are now funded for hire. So our stance is that we're in good standing there. The next one was the Public Service Commission. Thanks to Representative Powell, he has graciously sponsored that bill, and we've been asked by the governor's office to take the regulatory part, what has been known as the paper tiger, from the Public Service Commission and bring it underneath the Department of Public Safety. Essentially, these are the rules that govern our limousines, folks that are in the moving company, or non-consensual towing. Moves the administration of that to us, and we have the enforcement folks then that can enforce those rules. And that's accurately reflected there as well. And then the main issue, fuel. First of all, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and every member of the committee for your support in the amended. Since we had that conversation, gas has gone up 25 cents at the pump. So that brings us to this year. With a forecast of potentially even higher fuel prices. Through conservation efforts over the past few years, we've dropped our annual fuel usage from 1.7 million gallons to 1.2 million gallons. So we have made great strides in conservation. How have we done this? We've done it from stationary types of enforcement instead of patrolling. But the fact of the matter is that we're kind of out of balance in our game plan. Everybody that has a game plan has a couple of plans, and ours includes stationary as well as moving patrol. In that period of time, with that reduction, 3.4 million miles were reduced in patrolling in the state. So the fact of the matter is there are some roads that should be patrolled that haven't been patrolled as often as they should be. So the position that the governor has in the budget, we really appreciate the amount of money that's been placed in there of $700,000, and your support in that matter and any additional support would be greatly appreciated. We do have 2 bonding issues, if that's something you'd like us. All right, sir. And that's our issues: fuel, fuel, and fuel.
Questions about fuel? Representative Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you letting us know what the fuel issue is. How much is it going to take to have you guys, your troopers out there on the road patrolling, doing what it takes to keep the roads properly covered?
If we go back to non-conservation levels, which was 1.7 million gallons, it would take about $1.9 million to accomplish that.
How much do you have in there with the inclusion, without the inclusion of the $700,000 we've added back on in the 2013 budget?
We would need $1.2 million.
Oh, so that's like zero based right there.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Gotcha. I think I understand that.
Representative Purcell.
I just wanted to add, too, that we were looking at a $4 price for the gas per gallon. And from reports received yesterday, it looks like it's going to be rising very quickly to over $5 a gallon for gasoline. So I'd like this committee to take heed to that also, because weren't all of your numbers based on a $4 per gallon?
Yes, ma'am. We've looked at the projections. We'd kind of like that Iranian oil minister to keep his hands off of it, but don't have control of that. But we've looked at the projections that potentially we're looking at $4 to $4.25 gallon of gas by Memorial Day.
All right. Assuming that it stays at $4 or thereabouts, what does the $700,000 that's in the budget right now do to you?
Pays for the price of the pump. That's it, sir. Keeps us at flat even, essentially at our conservation levels.
Okay, so that keeps you even, Stephen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And so anything above that would allow y'all to do more patrolling?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And if price goes up to $5 a gallon, then what you're going to do is station a trooper and just wave people over to the side. You won't even have to chase them, right?
Or confiscate tankers.
If it hits that price, you won't have near as many people out on the road.
That's true.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you,
sir. Kenny, I know you aren't on the schedule today. You want to come talk to us since we got some extra time? Yeah, you, Kenny. He's next.
Somebody calls me Kenny. I know they do me in grammar school.
Mr. Vance, if you would.
Yes, sir.
We're dealing with page 44 post, correct?
Very quickly, Mr. Chairman, all we are asking for is 2 things. One, recognition that approximately $600,000 of what is shown in our budget is not ours. It is, in fact, the sheriff's training money and the chief's training money. So that puts our budget really below what it cost us for our personnel cost. That gives us a almost $1.2 million budget in our, $1.3 million budget, and we have about a $1.5 million personal services. That's just for the people that we have in our office today.
So the $600,000 is a pass-through?
Yes, sir. It's earmarked for the chiefs and the sheriffs per y'all. It just passes through the Peace Officer Standards and Training budget, as it's shown here on your sheet.
All right, and so the money that you are short, number one, is not reflected in this budget, so you're requesting something.
Correct.
All right, what are you requesting?
Basically, sir, about $125,000, so we don't have to come up with that money in fees to pay our personnel that we have there today.
All right, you say you're 300,000 short.
We'll make the rest up in fees, we believe. We want to do our part, but I really think if you work for the state of Georgia ought to pay you. And everybody else gets paid that way. We don't.
All right, 125 is what you're asking.
Yes, sir.
Any questions? Gosh, we don't have to call you back.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate y'all allowing me to be here.
We appreciate you dropping by because that saved us another hearing later on down the road. Are you going to be at the function tonight? Okay. Former Representative Bearden. I think everybody wants to push a button. Well, you show up, you take your chances.
Because there's a deputy director missing, which is my budget person. But
I told you weren't going to have a budget person when you came in.
you told me a lot of things there, Mr. Chairman, to be quite honest with you. But if you want to discuss some of the things that we're doing at the training center and fiscal year 2013 budget, as you know, there's a lot of conversations last year about the closing of the Augusta Academy. While we are moving forward and shutting down the 3 double-wide trailers that we've been working out of in Augusta that was built probably back in the mid-'70s, we have worked with Sheriff Whittle and Sheriff Strength in Columbia County and in Richmond County to do a satellite facility, so we'll be able to have oversight from Athens to that Augusta facility, and when they have enough folks from basic mandate training, all they got to do is let us know. We'll be there for them. We'll run basic training out of that facility. We are also looking at creating partnerships up in Northwest Georgia, which deals with our Dalton facility. Right now we're training approximately 93 students out of Dalton. We're running the facility out of DOC building that has 50 rooms. It's just way too big for what we need, and it's costing way too much money to the department and to the training center. So what we're looking at is trying to do a partnership in Northwest Georgia to move a couple, 2 to 3 classes a year in that region. Also, some of the things we're doing, the savings from Augusta is also going to allow us to buy more ammunition. That's in the budget cut this year.
That would appeal to you.
It would. We don't just give them one bullet. They got to do a lot of shooting. Looking back through the budgets, we have declined a lot on training and ammunition from about 1,000 rounds per student down to 400. Now, kind of echo Director Keenan's comments. We have a lot of instructors at the training center. Our basic instructors paid about $35,000. Yes, they're a big commodity also because locals would like to have trained instructors to go with them. So we also deal with that same issue of fighting to keep our instructors at the training center and at our 6 regional academies. There's also been a cut of $244,000 to the North Central Law Enforcement Academy. Had a conversation yesterday with Sheriff Warren. With that money being pulled, I'm having another conversation with him Wednesday. They may shut that down. So we're going to have to look at what we need to do on that end to pick up the caseload that they are currently using. Also, conversations around Jackson from the technical schools. Starting July 1st, technical schools will be out of the basic mandate training, which means Forsyth and the 6 regional academies we have right now will be picking those students up. So we're looking like we're going to have a lot of folks coming our way. We're very proud of our resident agencies that we work with DNR, GSP, and GBI down at Forsyth. We made a lot of work in working together, making sure that we're accommodating them for their space. And as you came down to the facility, you saw some of the conditions that the facility's in. They're mobilizing hopefully today to start repairing the roof that's over 25 years old, so every time it rains we don't have 30-gallon buckets collecting rain throughout the facility. So I was able to cut that out of the bond request.
All right. What I want you to do basically are 3 things, and then we'll open it up for questions, okay? Number one, because I know I was not aware of the structure until we had our little tutorial down in Forsyth. So the first thing I want you to do is talk about the relationship of the central campus with the regionals and why that is a good concept, because I know last year we talked maybe about going to the technical school concept, but you're convinced about the regionals and what the purpose of the central campus. So that's the first thing. Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The second thing is I want you to talk to us a little bit about the new programs, the things that we need to be doing that we aren't doing, and the benefits of doing that, like offering training for people from out of state that we might actually collect some money on. And then the third thing I want you to talk about is the bond package, and even though we may not have a whole lot of input in that, we may, and so I want you to talk about what's in the governor's bond package, but what you really need. Okay?
Okay.
You got those three?
Got it.
Okay.
Number one, as you know, when the original facility was built, it was built to be a specialized advanced training facility. Over the years, we've gotten start bringing in more and more basic mandate training into the academy, which has cut back on specialized advanced training. One of the things we can look at is during basic EVOC, do the classes that we have and all our regionals, since we do not have a basic EVOC pad to do that training, they all come to Forsyth. So our high-speed track is not utilized probably 10 months out of the year. What does that mean? For the past 6 years, from my research, we have not offered an advanced EVOC class, which is emergency vehicle operations course. That's unacceptable. In basic mandate, we do the basics. Unfortunately, in driving portion, that means making sure they know how to miss a cone. It's a 3-day class. We send them back to their departments. The departments put them behind a Crown Vic or a Dodge Charger that will go anywhere from 120 to 150 miles an hour. They have no idea what their limitations are. They have no idea what the limitations are of the vehicle, and that's a very dangerous combination. So one of the things I've suggested to the chiefs and the sheriffs is maybe extending basic mandate training from basically 10.5 weeks, probably up to 14 weeks, to give them more driving time, more firearms time, and also some other classes such as basic radar, LIDAR, intoximeter, maybe some civil process paperwork handling for the sheriffs to make sure that when they go back to the sheriff's office they have that portion down. So we are working with the sheriffs and the police chiefs across this state to look at that issue. Now, when we talk about the main facility, to get that back to specialized advanced training, we got to rely heavily on our regionals. Our regional academies need to start taking the bulk of the basic mandate training. That way it lightens the load in Forsyth so we can have that specialized advanced training as I was talking about. And this will kind of roll in to the next thing that Chairman Powell was talking about. What can we do on training that may appeal to agencies outside the state of Georgia, because then we can actually start charging tuition prices basically for these folks coming in from out of state, which of course if you're in state that's free. Well, there's several things we're looking at. One, from the fire side, we have a airplane prop. Right now we have people coming from Florida and Alabama going straight up I-75, bypassing our facility, going to South Carolina to do a class on airport fire safety and firefighting. One of the things that we are missing is called an ARF truck. It's the one that actually sprays the foam on an airplane. We're looking through surplus, working with Homeland Security to see if we can't find something that's out there to bring that ARF truck here to us, because every class we run we could generate between $20,000 to $30,000 in revenue per class on the firefighting side for the airports. One of the other things we've looked at, we've had a DNR officer killed in the past on ATV. We've had another one injured. We have many departments throughout this state that relies heavily on the ATVs. But if you want ATV training, you either go to Minnesota or you join up to be a Border Patrol agent and go to New Mexico for training. We have 600 idle acres right now at Forsyth. I can put a pretty good ATV course out there, get the curriculum and the class developed, so we can start offering ATV classes. That would be very appealing to our DNR, to our local sheriff's office that has ATVs in municipalities. Plus, being the only game in the Southwest or Southeast especially, we could branch out and offer that training to departments outside the state and pretty much across the nation. We are very proud of our facility in Forsyth. It is a 25-year-old facility. When it was built, no doubt about it, it's one of the kind in its nation. It still is when we put fire and law enforcement together. It's probably the best facility in the world when it was first built. But we are dealing with infrastructure problems right now. And one of the things was the roof that we're working on. The roofs were so bad that our gym floor has rotted out so bad you can actually see the dirt underneath the floor. That's not a good thing. So that's one of the things we're looking to get fixed. Last year we had, while I was sitting up there with y'all, we had about a $3.1 million bond package for the facility. That $3.1 million that was going towards infrastructure had to be redirected because we had a catastrophic failure in electricity that cost approximately $3.1 million to fix. So whatever the issues that we had on the bond package to be fixed last year got pushed aside, and unfortunately they were not covered in this year's budget. But of course we got to have electricity to operate that facility. It's a huge facility. I want to right now go ahead and give you an open invitation anytime y'all like to come down and tour it. Love to have you, because I think it's a really great facility. It's just 25 years old, so we got to get some things working on it to get it fixed. But
I'd like to be 25 years old again.
I would too. But as I said, it's a great facility. We're working on it. I understand the budget process. We're going to make it work with whatever we got. My mission as the director is to make sure training is provided to local law enforcement agencies, those firefighters across this state, and our resident agencies, which of course is GSP, DNR, and GBI. So we're going to do whatever it takes. The regional concept on the satellites, that's a very important process of it, but making sure that those regionals are taken care of and have the ability to run these basic mandates so we can get back to specialized advanced training in Forsyth. That's the number one goal.
But you're working in partnership to make this as economical as possible on the regionals, correct?
We are, and I don't know if Terry's still over there or not, but I owe a big debt to the Sheriff Association and the sheriffs. They have been very willing to work with me on this concept. Sheriff Whittle, Sheriff Strank's been great. Been working with Sheriff Ralston and Sheriff Chitwood up in Northwest Georgia. Probably going to need to contact your sheriff very soon because I need one more classroom for one more class, and we're trying to find that right now. But we want to make sure that we do not leave anyone out hanging, basically, in this state when it comes to training. So that's why these satellites, especially in Northwest Georgia and East Georgia, is so vitally important, and make sure that they're overseen by one of our other facilities that we have, whether it be in Athens or what we're currently working on right now in Cherokee County. Part of this current bond package is about $2 million. $839,000 of it is to fix the remaining 13 structures we have on campus. We got about $3 million in repairs right now to the main facility on that roof. This $839 in the bond package will take care of the other 13 roofs. $1 million, about $300,000 will be going to one of my regionals in East Georgia to put a basic EVOC pad out there, so we can start getting these facilities.
EVOC is
Basic Emergency Vehicle Operations Course. And I'll be honest, I hate the name because there's nothing emergency about it. It should be Non-Emergency Vehicle Operations Course, just like the federal government has at their training facility, because we're teaching them how to miss a cone, properly back in serpentines, things like that. Emergency Vehicle Operations Course is when you get out there on that high-speed track and you start learning the limitations to the vehicle and start learning your limitations in a vehicle. And no, sir, I'm not bringing anything up from when you were down there. That's how the look on your eyes. But anyway, but that's where we're headed right now, and we just appreciate the committee's work.
Tell us about the money that was in your bond request that you didn't get. What was it for?
That's one. You may have been outside when I talked about the catastrophic electrical failure that we had last year. That was over $3 million. So the bond request we had last year, all that money was redirected for those emergency repairs. The other thing a lot of people don't know about Forsyth, we are the logistics staging area for Homeland Security and GMA. So if there's a major disaster either out there on the coast, where are they going to come in and get everything set up? Well, they're going to be using our facility because we can house them in our dorms. We got the inmate population that to help us load up the trucks. We have a facility so you can land the helicopters, and we also have a facility where you can load up the 18-wheelers to get them loaded up down to I-16 out to the coast or wherever that emergency may be. And that's while we're talking about it, let me bring it up. Our facility also has a 800, well, I think it's supposed to be 800 beds, but I think there's 900 inmates at Burris right now on our facility that we cook for every day, three meals a day, 7 days a week. We also handle Monroe County's inmate population on their food. We have the facilities with 250 beds. That helps out a lot for these local agencies that come down, need a place to stay. They can stay in the dorm rooms. And we've done a lot to improve the food quality over the last 6 to 8 months down there. It's nothing against Georgia Correctional Industries, but we have a private vendor that we use for those students coming in from around the state, and inmates get the GCI food.
If we could influence the bond package, what would be your top priority to be added in there?
Basically the $3.1 million that came out last year that deals a lot with the fire training tower repairs. A lot of the carpet that we have, especially in the bays where the trooper graduation takes place, we have leaking roofs. That carpet's ruined. It has a interesting odor when you walk in there, depending on how much humidity there is during the day. So there's just a lot of things on there. We can get you a copy of a bond package for the committee immediately to kind of show you what our number one concerns were and list them in that priority.
Do that.
We'll make sure that happens.
Okay. Representative Weldon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bearden, you mentioned that we're going to close the Dalton facility, and that's a 50-room facility.
It was originally built in 2002 for Department of Corrections. It was never used. That Northwest Georgia Police Academy kind of bounced around over the years, and that's kind of where it landed right now. I have talked with Commissioner Owens. I have talked with Commissioner Buckner to see if that's a facility they may be able to use with DJJ. She's supposed to come up and look at that facility over the next 2-3 weeks, I believe. She's going to get with me.
So what the plan is to close the Dalton facility?
Yes, sir, and use the local agencies up there that have training classrooms to do a satellite facility. We only need to run about 2 classes a year out of Northwest Georgia for the amount of students that we have. Mm-hmm. So if we can use, Sheriff Ralston and Gordon County said that they could accommodate at least 1 class a year. If I can get 1 more facility up in Northwest Georgia to help me out, facilitate 1 more class, then that regional area can be taken care of. It will run just like it did in Augusta. When they get the students ready for class, give us a call. We'll come up there and make sure the classes are ran.
Okay. It was my understanding that the Dalton facility hosted folks from Blue Ridge, from LJ, all around that area. It's served a lot of communities up there, from Alabama over to, at least midway through the state.
That's why we're not leaving. We know the importance for the gas prices to make sure that we have a presence in Northwest Georgia, also so they can stay at their homes instead of having to get a hotel room. Mm-hmm. But what we have right now is we have 50 rooms, beds, at that facility, a very large facility, that we have to either keep heat and air on to make sure that those temperatures are right so those rooms aren't ruined or the whole facility don't go bad. So we're paying well over $60,000 a year to host approximately 75, 90 students a year when you count in service. But then when you talk about Fannin County sends some of their folks down to Forsyth. Gordon County's been sending their folks to Forsyth because of the free lodging. I'm not going to leave Northwest Georgia out. That's why we're working and developing these partnerships with the sheriff so that we maintain that presence, so to help them in gas and also in lodging.
Okay. Representative Purcell.
Mr. Bearden, can you help me understand exactly how many regional centers that we have throughout the state of Georgia? And what is in the forecast for any additional ones?
We have 6. We have Dalton. We have Athens. We have Augusta, Tifton, Garden City, and Columbus. And then you have Forsyth right now, which holds basic mandate classes. I said I'm going to go over to Cobb County next week, look at their facility. It's approximately a 34,000 square foot facility with technical schools getting out of the business of basic mandate. It's going to be putting a lot more pressure on the training center, but we'll handle whatever comes our way. We'll make sure it does get handled. And I know we're talking a lot about law enforcement right now, but we also got to remember the training center also handles firefighters across this state. So we're part of that also.
Can I ask another,
Sure.
Mr. Chairman? Talking about the technical schools getting out of the business of the mandate of training.
Yes, ma'am.
How is that going to relay back to us to have the instructors in place for the training at these regional centers and as well as at our facility, the main campus?
We are short on instructors. I don't have the paperwork with me. I said I maybe should hit outside, but I don't have Patrice Kerner with me, my deputy director, but we are definitely short on instructors. We're going to need more instructors as we're moving forward, but right now, again, back to the sheriffs and police chiefs and the fire side, we rely heavily on adjunct instructors, and they don't get paid. They're taking time out of their day to come out and help us instruct and teach. So if it wasn't for adjunct instructors and the willingness between the sheriffs, police chiefs, and firefighters, we would definitely be in a jam in this state when it comes to training.
Okay. One more question.
Yes, ma'am.
Talking about the partnerships with the sheriffs, as you know, in this election year, the sheriffs, I would say the majority of them, if not all, are up for re-election.
Yes, ma'am.
What kind of plans are in place in funding for those newly sheriffs-elect for their training process?
That's one that Mr. Norris could speak on. I think it's around $400-something thousand, if I'm not mistaken. Hey, he is still over there. He might be able to answer that question better than I can, since that's directly to their association.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. All the training funds for the Georgia Sheriff's Association come through the Post Council. This particular issue of sheriffs-elect training occurs every 4 years. We are to provide that training in conjunction with a public safety training center. This year, for whatever reason, I'd like to think it was a Office of Management, OPB oversight. That money is not in this budget that you're looking at for post. So there is a $401,000 cost estimated on 50 new sheriffs. Now that 50 number, it fluctuates between 45 and about 53 for the last 16 years. So that money, in addition to training costs, also under Georgia law is required. We're required to pay each newly elected sheriff a salary for the 4 weeks in which they're at the training, and that's based on the salary of the sheriff in the least populated county of the state.
Terry, if you will, get with Kendra, because we don't know about that,
Yes, sir.
and we need to address that with everything else we've got to address.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Representative Baker.
Mr. Director, the emergency vehicle training, does the counties mandate that, or does the state?
On the basic side?
Yes.
That's something that was put into the training and was approved by Post when, at that time, it came in for the basic emergency vehicle operations course. When we had the advance, that was one of the specialized trainings that we did, because we got a great track facility down there. It's about a 1.5 mile track. Truly, I think we need another high-speed track in the state, whether it be in Forsyth or somewhere else in the state, because that's something also that will help out with the State Patrol and all their officers when they need in-service training. Something else we're having to look at closely right now, as you go down the road, you see a lot more SUVs on the road.
Yeah.
We don't offer any training on SUVs and those high center of gravity vehicles. Well, starting this summer, we've got a course laid out so we can start given that type of instruction for those individuals that will drive the either F-150s or the Tahoes, wherever they may be driving, because it's a totally different type of vehicle and they need that training. So we're looking at getting that training out there. But the basic EVOC is a 3-day course. It's basically 1 day in the classroom, 2 out on the track, and it's a pass or fail type thing at the end of that. But we definitely need to get some type of high-speed familiarization in a closed environment, which we are down at Forsyth, and start getting more access in that high-speed arena. And that's some of the things that we're working on right now.
That's a liability issue for a lot of law enforcement agencies as far as if you don't do that properly, it puts other people at risk.
There's no doubt if there's an accident with injuries or fatalities, unfortunately, which do occur, that's pretty big litigation.
Okay. Question, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
What about, you talked about the different vehicles, but what about the the helicopters and stuff? Does that come under you? Do you see that's
He would like for it to.
But no, sir, that does not fall under me. State Patrol, they work under federal guidelines, I believe, to make sure that their hours through the FAA is taken care of, and that certain type of training. I don't see the colonel here, but that falls under them, and with DNR, they have that training. Now, we do have a great facility, so if they want to do any type of repelling from helicopters or rescue training, we can accommodate whatever they need on any type of mock disaster that they want to train on. But when it comes to their pilots and everything, that falls under, I'm sure it falls under the FAA and that training guideline.
All right, we got 2 more that need to talk, and then we got to be out of here in about 4 minutes. Representative Powell.
Yes, sir.
Briefly talk about the presence in northeast Georgia.
Right now we have Athens, and that's going to be, I believe, probably the closest area that we have because it goes from Athens to Augusta. And that's about the presence we have over there right now in that part of the state. A lot of times they'll either go to Athens or go to Augusta, or they may even go to Dalton. And, of course, I always have the option of coming down to Forsyth at this moment. In Athens, well, right now through they're averaging about 274 students per year, and I don't have it broke down to what all agencies that come to Athens. Augusta average is about 83 per year, but I imagine your folks over in your side of the state would be coming down to Athens or coming down to Forsyth at our facility because of the lodging that they have in Forsyth. But it's just exactly the same basic mandate class that would be given at any regional or down at Forsyth. It's all done by our managers and our instructors in those areas. We have a division director who's over that training portion of the training center. So everything should be ran identical to whatever area that you go to in those regions. Yes, sir. Right now, we're at approximately 160. We do. One of the issues we have, of course, we run a city, basically in Forsyth, down at the training center, so we have a lot of operations involved, a lot of maintenance, food services involved, but when it comes to instructors, your basic instructor that's out there doing our mandate classes or teaching the advanced classes start out at $35,000 a year. When they're teaching these classes, most of them, especially in mandate, they're teaching students that as soon as they graduate will probably be making more than they are. Training has become a major issue because of liability. So if you can pick someone who's been in charge of training from the Public Safety Training Center, they have a pretty good chance of going basically anywhere they want to because of their knowledge and background in the training, probably go into a training division for any department in the state they want to. So, yeah, they can make more money elsewhere. And it's been, as we know, in 2007, I think it's the last time was any raises were given. Then, of course, everything fell off the cliff with the economy, and since then there hasn't been any raises given. So trying to make sure that we have a good facility for them to come to work every day is very important also for us. But they love their jobs. They love teaching, and they do a great job doing it.
Representative Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Bearden? One of the concerns that we've heard mentioned more than once, and he touched on a little bit, was instructors and keeping quality instructors and enough quality instructors. And obviously we're proud of the training that we have there at the Forsyth facility and across the state, and committed to making sure that we continue having the best training available. And I just want to know, what kind of assurance do we have that our trainees coming to Forsyth are not going to be subjected to training from you?
Well, I'm not.
Good question.
I'm not instructor certified. How's that? It's amazing what you can do with a firearm and a gun, though. Appreciate the question.
Yeah. Any more?
Thank you, Mr. Bearden.
Any
Had
more,
to have a little fun.
Any more legitimate questions?
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much. I know you weren't prepared today, but it gave us an opportunity to hear from you and Mr. Vance, who we didn't have scheduled, so that knocks two of them out of off our list, and we appreciate you coming.
And I'll get you that paperwork for the committee.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other business, we are adjourned.